We'll do a full UCU update in the foreseeable future, but I just wanted to take this video and talk about how the UCU is branching out increasingly into video games. There's still a lot of value in the franchise. The problem is, though, that the movies haven't been too successful lately. We're on the third or fourth Spring Offensive movie. There was Spring Offensive, Summer Offensive, Late Summer Offensive. Fall Offensive is going to be coming out soon. It's probably not going to do any better than the previous ones. We had the aborted attempt to have the sci-fi monster movie about the nuclear power plant. That didn't go anywhere either. They got tired of re-releasing remastered editions of Nord Stream, so that's gone. The collector's edition of Ghost of Kiev didn't do very well. The last successful film in the franchise was Prigozhin and Lukashenko's excellent adventure. Unfortunately, Prigozhin died under mysterious circumstances. Some people suspect that it was the Russian cinematic universe and the head director of the Russian cinematic universe, Putin, killed Prigozhin because he didn't like that he was starring in UCU movies. And it was like this big studio dispute. That's all speculation. For a lot of people, Prigozhin was their favorite UCU character, and he will be missed. Um, that being said, let's get into today's video. So, there's been a fury of announcements for video games in the UCU. The big one is that they've hired the people who made the Long War mod in Terra Invicta to make Ukraine the Long War, which is going to be a video game about the Ukraine conflict, which is going to focus on going around to various countries, begging for weapons and funding, and using them up in pointless offensives against fortified positions. A big part of the game, more so than the actual combat, it's not really a war game per se. You're going to have to manage the media narrative, um, the delusion meter. There's like a delusion meter for the government, for the people, and for the collective West. And if the delusion meter, like your funding is equivalent to the delusion meter, the higher it is, the more money you get. And the idea is this game is going to be extremely long. It's going to be longer than Terra Invicta. It's going to be about 200 hours long. And a lot of it is just going to be a nothing burger. And a lot of it is just going to be your enemy faking you out and then ultimately doing nothing. So, Ukraine the Long War is coming out sooner or later. It might be a long time. My guess is it's just going to be in early access for the next 2 years. I mean, it's like the U.S. has said, we aren't going to get shell production up till 2025. So I don't expect the Ukraine Long War game to be out of early access until the same period of time. But I digress. Today we're going to talk about an alternate history video game that was announced by the president of the EU. And we're going to read about this on the far right pro Russian website of the European Commission. So you know that this is propaganda. So let's go down here. Let's just read this cringe. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here tonight and speak at this esteemed gathering about an ally and a friend and a most deserving. Okay, let's just scroll down. It's I could tell the audience about our amazing cooperation in the years, dear Prime Minister, about how we coordinated our actions in the wake of and in the aftermath of Russia's full-scale aggression of Ukraine, or how you hosted an incredibly successful G7 summit in Hiroshima. It has to be about Ukraine. The Atlantic Council Awards. That sounds like the most Illuminati-esque thing. But there is another moment that is even more telling of your courage and leadership. I'm talking about your visit to the small Ukrainian town of Bucha, a symbol of Russian brutality and of Ukrainian resistance. Bucha was liberated by Ukraine's brave soldiers in the early weeks of the war, but Russian troops left a trail of death and destruction. They executed dozens of civilians in cold blood. It was one of the worst war crimes since the start of Russia's brutal war. I mean, if the worst war crime during a 2 year long war that's seen hundreds of thousands of deaths is like a dozen guys getting shot, that's honestly not that bad. That's not bad at all. I like also that this is the focus of like the giving the Japanese dude, the Japanese Prime Minister, an award. We're just going to talk about Ukraine. Let's see, and brought And you brought, okay, there's a spelling mistake here. That's good. EU Commission, they're really paying the interns well. And you brought with you Japan's solidarity and words and deeds. From the very beginning of this war, you opened your country to Ukrainian refugees. I'm going to have to press an X to doubt on that one. You joined us in sanctioning Russia for its crimes, and you stood at our side when Putin tried to blackmail Europe with gas. I mean, did he try to blackmail Europe with gas? I mean, you guys blew up the Nord Stream pipeline and then banned him from exporting gas to Europe. Um, Ukraine and the whole of Europe will be forever grateful to you for this. Arigato, dear Fumio. Oh, this is cringe. You've done this because you know that although Ukrainians are paying the highest price, this war is not only about Ukraine, it's not only about. Okay, let's just see here. This is the basic principles of the UN Charter, which have protected global peace. There's been global peace since the end of World War II. It is about the simple yet vital rule that borders cannot be changed by force, and that every country should be free to chart its own path. That is 100% not true. Um, there is no circumstance, regardless of how legitimate the referendum is, that the collective West would accept Crimea and Lukansk and the other one joining Russia. It doesn't matter what standards it was held under; it would never be allowed. Also, we're going to talk about taking away territory by force. I mean, America took away literally all of Japan's colonies by force. And I think a bunch of like unoccupied islands they grabbed too. So I don't know if that's really like what you should be bringing up. You understand that we must all contribute to upholding the UN Charter because in a lawless world, any country might face the same fate as Ukraine. That's how it works, just any country. In your words, Ukraine today may be East Asia tomorrow. What? Like, what does East Asia mean? Like, you do realize that East Asia includes China, right? So, are we talking about China is going to get invaded by Russia like Ukraine? Also, it's not any country because they aren't going to, Russia's not going to attack a NATO member. Russia's not going to start a war with a country with nuclear weapons. I just, whatever. European security and Indo-Pacific security are one and the same. No, they are not. Your vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific is also our vision. No, it isn't. So we are bound to work together in these 2 years. Prime Minister, well, they blockaded Russia. Like they've. What about the North Korea sanctions? I mean, it clearly isn't. From East Asia to Europe and North America, you have reconnected Japan to its most trusted partners and built new bridges across the world. Thanks to your leadership today, our three continents are closer than ever before. Okay, here we go. This is where we're going to get into the alternate history video game that is the alternate ending to World War II. So we're just going to take a look at that. There's a Japanese proverb that tells a lot about the country and about its prime minister. It says, Enko Kishishin, I can't pronounce it. Explore the past to learn new things. You, dear Prime Minister, showed me the meaning of this proverb during the G Summit in Japan last year. You brought us to your hometown of Hiroshima, the place where you have your roots, and which has deeply shaped your life and leadership. Many of your relatives lost their lives when the atomic bomb razed Hiroshima to the ground, 6 million to be precise. You have grown up with the stories of survivors, and you wanted us to listen to the same stories, to face the past, and learn something about the future. It was a sobering start to the G7 and one that I will not forget, especially when Russia threatens to use nuclear weapons once again. Many of your relatives lost their lives when the atomic bomb razed Hiroshima. Russia threatens to use nuclear weapons again. So the cope here is that she can't speak English properly, and that there wasn't supposed to be an implication here that Russia used nuclear weapons that they didn't even have at the time against Japan. But I'm sure it gets better. It is heinous, it is dangerous, and in the shadow of Hiroshima, it is unforgivable. Once again, like, okay, so Hiroshima, Russia threatens to use weapons again. We're going to talk about Hiroshima. Right from the beginning of the war, Japan's position was clear. As the only country that has suffered from atomic bombings, you have made the whole world listen. The only country that suffered from Russia's atomic bombings. That's what it is. I especially find this funny when Oppenheimer is still in like the box offices, and literally there's just been a major motion picture that came out about how America fired atomic bombs against Japan, and they're still trying to pull this nonsense. Today, Russia's nuclear saber. Oh, okay, they mispronounced. Wow, they need to spell check this. I know my spelling shit, but I'm not the office of the EU. I'm not writing the transcript of the EU commissioners, EU presidents stuff. Has been condemned not only by our like-minded partners in the G7, but by the whole world. And your diplomatic efforts have been crucial to reach this outcome. This is true leadership, the kind of leadership that the world needs in these troubled times. Leadership that is not afraid to learn from the past to shape a different future. Or in this case, learn from the future to shape a different past. By creating this alternate history video game where Japan got nuked by Russia. I guess Japan got like occupied by Russia. And it's like, I don't know the rest of the storyline. It's going to be like Kaiserreich, though. It's going to be like Kaiserreich. So let's listen to this.
Please welcome European Commission President.
A symbol of Russia's brutality.
Okay, so once again, I have a far-right news source, which is the same thing I was just previously reading. And this is a videotape of the speech. I'm sure this is a deepfake. So let's see if it looks like she meant to imply that or if I'm just hallucinating.
It was a sobering start to the G7 and one that I will not forget, especially at a time when Russia threatens to use nuclear weapons once again. It is heinous, it is dangerous, and in the shadow of Hiroshima, it is unforgivable. No one is better poised than Japan.
Okay, well, I think it's pretty clear that that was, she clearly can't speak English at all. There was no implication there whatsoever that Russia used nuclear weapons. It's not historical revisionism. It's not just something like there was no intention here. There was no intention to demonize Russia. Like it's not even about the politics. No, it is, but it's not even about it if you support Russia or Ukraine. It's just historical revisionism, and it's retarded historical revisionism. It's not like, oh, there's a new perspective on this event, or we found some additional information. It's just lying. And if we're going to pretend that the president of Europe is so retarded and so incapable of speaking properly that they're going to, like, this was just like a gaffe, then the world is fucked if this person is in charge of the EU. Of a country in the case of France that has nuclear weapons. That, like, it's insane. So that is the UCU alternate history video game. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be the next Kaiserreich. God bless everybody, and I'll talk to you real soon.